Two other protesters hospitalized right now, one with life-threatening injuries after being hit by a car. Right now, State Patrol investigating why a man drove a car through a crowd of protesters on I-5 early this morning. One eyewitness told us the car appeared to have gone around a blockade of vehicles before ramming those two people. KOMO's Nick Popham joins us live now with the very latest details. Nick.
Yeah, Michelle, there's still much to look into as investigators continue to comb through the evidence and talk with different witnesses who were on the freeway when that car drove through those protesters. One person we spoke with who was on I-5 when this happened said the car was driving so fast a lot of people didn't have time to react when it was coming right toward them.
You see a tragedy like this, and it really tears your heart out.
As an independent journalist based in Seattle, Mark Taylor Canfield has been covering these demonstrations since May 30th. He says last night was only the second time he's followed the protests onto I-5, and that he heard it was intended to be a short demonstration.
I heard someone say, a car. So I jumped out of the lane.
After 1 in the morning, a white car had gotten onto the freeway after it had been closed because of the protests. While driving south, it rammed right into two people.
It was a terrible thing to witness.
According to the Washington State Patrol, the driver of the car then drove away from the scene before being stopped near Edgar Martinez Drive South.
This was the second time, though, that a car has somehow run the blockade or gotten through to the protest. So that's one of the questions, of course, is, how did that happen?
It's absolutely not a safe place, no matter what we try and do.
Trooper Chase Van Cleve says as of right now, Washington State Patrol isn't changing its tactics when it comes to preventing protesters from getting onto the freeway.
I know that the people who make those decisions have been in discussion on what the plan is moving forward. I haven't been informed of changes.
Right now, both protesters are in the hospital, one with life-threatening injuries and in critical condition. The other suffered serious injuries and is stable.
These kinds of tragedies are just so regrettable, and I never want to see this again.
The State Patrol was able to arrest the person who was driving the car. Van Cleve tells me they have troopers preparing for another night of protests going on to I-5. As for last night, the interstate was closed from Route 520 to I-90 when the protesters were hit. Live in Seattle, Nick Popham, KOMO News.
We wish them well. All right, Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan responded today. She took to Twitter posting, quote, "Our city stands beside their friends, families, and loved ones in praying for these women and all who were there." She went on to say she has offered State Patrol and city resources anything they need in the investigation.
To Seattle now, where a driver is under arrest after slamming into protesters on a closed stretch of highway, seriously injuring two women. ABC's Zareen Shah with the details and the surveillance video. A warning, it is difficult to watch.
It's a horrifying moment. The white car plowing into protesters on a Seattle freeway.
A car ran over some people on the freeway, possibly.
The Jaguar striking two women, now both in critical condition in an ICU. Moments earlier, a protester live streaming this video before running for cover.
Yeah, two hit, two down. Appears that somebody's attempting CPR.
The highway had been closed for demonstrations when the driver entered the freeway going the wrong way. Police arrested the 27-year-old Seattle man. The motive for the alleged crime, unknown. Seattle, a city in chaos. That freeway closed for 19 straight nights for demonstrations. The police now saying they can no longer guarantee protesters' safety. The city under siege since the killing of George Floyd. Just days ago, riot police reclaiming a so-called autonomous zone taken over by protesters. Authorities had been blocked from the area for weeks, but after multiple shootings, officers cleared out the CHOP zone.
Protests against racial injustice taking place all across the country. Right here in Los Angeles, people protesting peacefully and safely off the streets. Police making it clear they have little tolerance for people taking to the freeways. Whit?
All right, Zareen, thank you. Protesters are gathering in Aurora, Colorado as well for the second night in a row, demanding justice for Elijah McClain. It comes after the release of selfies showing police officers appearing to reenact the type of neck hold used on McClain during a violent takedown last August. He died 3 days later. Here's ABC's Stephanie Ramos.
Tonight, demonstrators in Colorado demanding justice for 23-year-old Elijah McClain.
Who's this for?
protesters facing off with police outside the station in Aurora. Outrage boiling over amid a new scandal rocking the department. Officers Erica Marrero and Kyle Dittrich both fired, and Officer Jaron Jones resigning over these selfies, smiling and simulating the chokehold used on McLean, taken 2 months after the massage therapist's death.
It is a crime against humanity and decency.
McLean was walking home last August after buying iced tea at a convenience store when someone called 911 to report him as suspicious. Officers later putting him in a chokehold as he begged for his life. McLean died days later at the hospital. Police say during the confrontation with officers, McLean tried to grab Officer Jason Rosenblatt's gun. Months later, when Rosenblatt received this picture in a text message, he replied, "Ha." He too was fired Friday. None of the officers have been charged in McLean's death. Colorado's Attorney General is now investigating. Whit.
All right, Stephanie Ramos, thank you.
Voices are heard screaming "car" as a white vehicle barrels toward the crowd of protesters. The video disturbing. Voices are heard screaming "car" as a white vehicle barrels toward the crowd of protesters.
It happened so fast. By the time I actually just jumped up out of the lane, that car had already entered the crowd where people had been protesting.
Mark Taylor Cranfield, an independent journalist who is covering the 19th straight night that protesters made their way onto I-5.
People were screaming, they were weeping, people were trying to help the victims, and then at one point everyone realized, we need to get emergency vehicles in here, so people just vacated the on-ramp and the freeway immediately.
In videos circulating social media, that car is seen moving around a makeshift barricade, then accelerating toward the crowd, hitting 32-year-old Diaz Love and 24-year-old Taylor Summer. Washington State Patrol had the freeway blocked and say they believe the driver, a 27-year-old Seattle man, went the wrong way up an off-ramp and drove at a high speed toward the crowd. He drove away from the scene but was arrested shortly after.
We administered sobriety tests, and that continues to be a factor of our investigation, but the examination from a drug recognition expert has shown that there's not to be any impairment.
No motive is clear just yet as to why the driver did what he did, but Washington State Patrol Captain Ron Mead wanted to make it clear that protesting on the freeway is illegal.
What happened this morning is a tragedy. I mean, it is a true tragedy. But what's occurring out here is unlawful behavior.
Now, once again, that was the 19th straight night that protesters have blocked I-5. And I spoke with WSP just a few hours ago, and they wanted to make it clear, or they want to say that they're not planning on changing their protocol in terms of what they do blocking off I-5 when protests are nearby. But they did want to make clear that they want anyone who witnessed what happened last night or has videos of it to come forward and talk with them. Live in Seattle, Kayla Lafferty, King 5 News.
Kayla, thank you.
Was what the reasoning was, or how he got through where he got through and got to where he ended up.
Devastated friends have identified the victims as Summer Taylor, a non-binary 24-year-old from Seattle, a compassionate veterinary assistant devoted to fighting injustice. Also injured was 32-year-old Diaz Love from Bellingham. What happened to them has left a mark on everyone who was here.
It's impossible to express the deep sorrow that people feel right now.
Now, Summer Taylor remains in critical condition. Diaz Love has been upgraded to serious. A 27-year-old man, the driver, was stopped from leaving the freeway by friends of the protesters. We are told he faces multiple felony charges. Now, Captain Mead says again that being on the highway is illegal. We're working to bring you that part of the story, and we will have it for you in about a half hour. For now, reporting live in Seattle, Deborah Cairo 7 News.
Thank you, Deborah. And the crash comes about a week after the Washington State Patrol addressed the decision to close I-5 for nightly protests. Most closures have lasted 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That is the same amount of time former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin had his knee on George Floyd's neck. State Patrol Chief John Batiste said that he understands drivers' frustration, but that the closures are done for safety.
Well, the suspect from last night's crash is in the King County Jail tonight ahead of his first court appearance on Monday. KIRO 7's Ryan Sims joins us live from near where that crash happened. And Ryan, police say they are not sure if this was a deliberate attack.
It is one of the main things that they are investigating in this entire case, Lindsay. What troopers do know is that the suspect did drive the wrong way onto I-5 this morning. And in videos we've seen, it does not appear like he made any effort to slow down or stop before those two protesters were hit. Now, the suspect's name is Dawit Khalid. He is 27 years old, again, here from Seattle. Today, we found several social media accounts matching someone with that name from Seattle, but until we get concrete proof that those accounts were his, we're not able to show you his picture, at least not yet. What we do know is that troopers say he did not have any drugs or alcohol in his system at the time of this incident. Yet they say he somehow managed to get past the roadblocks on I-5 this morning and plow into protesters while headed in the wrong direction on the freeway. As a result, he is expected to face several serious charges.
But at the very least, looking at vehicular assault charges right now, felony hit and run, but those could be upgraded depending on the progress of the investigation.
Khalid will be in court on Monday. KIRO 7 News learned he has been in trouble with the law before. A check of his record shows he's faced charges of assault, trespassing, and malicious mischief. Yet keep in mind this, that each one of those charges was eventually dismissed. Now, back here live, absence of that record that I just mentioned are any major traffic infractions, but as we just mentioned on air right now, that is expected to change in the next few days as he is expected to face several serious driving charges. We are live in downtown Seattle tonight. Ryan Sims, KIRO 7 News.
Thank you, Ryan. Just disturbing video there. Meanwhile, Seattle police are also investigating a crash involving an off-duty officer and demonstrators. This happened shortly before this I-5 incident. Police say that the officer tried to drive their personal vehicle through an opening in a crowd blocking the intersection of Bourne Avenue and Olive Way. The crowd surrounded the vehicle, then it got hit by another driver. No injuries were reported. This incident has been referred to the Office of Police Accountability.
Onto I-5. They've been protecting them by blocking off the freeway, but they believe a driver deliberately drove the wrong way onto an on-ramp right into the crowd. Most of the protesters were able to scramble out of the way, but two of them were struck hard. We are stopping the video right before the impact. Washington State Patrol announced several days ago that troopers would not prevent protesters from entering the highway for their safety as well as that of the drivers. They held to that assurance last night, but they have made clear the dangers of being on I-5.
Here, we've said since May 30th, the freeway is not a safe place for pedestrians to be on the freeway, plain and simple. Whether they're protesters, whether they're homeless, whether they're broken down motorists, the freeway is simply not a safe place for pedestrians.
Now, the victims have been identified as 24-year-old Summer Taylor, a non-binary veterinary assistant from Seattle, and 32-year-old Diaz Love of Bellingham. Taylor remains in critical condition. Love's condition was upgraded to serious. Well, as you heard, Captain Meade says it is illegal to be on the freeway in anything other than a vehicle. But he says the troopers are hopeful that what happened overnight, this sad thing that happened right down there overnight, will convince the protesters that this is no place to be to spread their message. Reporting in Seattle, Deborah Horn, KIRO 7 News.
Thank you, Deborah. And turning our attention to the suspect in this case, he is in a jail cell tonight and expected to make his first court appearance on Monday. KIRO 7's Ryan Sims is live for us tonight near that crash scene, and troopers say, Ryan, that the suspect did not have any drugs or alcohol in his system when this crash happened.
Yeah, they say that he showed no signs of impairment whatsoever. Because of that, people have speculated that the accident may have happened in this spot and it may have been done on purpose. We need to emphasize tonight that troopers say that there is no proof yet that any of this was deliberate. Now, we've been able to confirm that the suspect, 27-year-old DeWitt Khalid from Seattle. Cairo 7 News learned he has been in trouble with the law before. A check of his record shows he's faced charges of assault, trespassing, and malicious mischief. Yet keep this in mind. Each one of those charges happened years ago, and each one was dismissed. Troopers say Khalid somehow managed to get around all the roadblocks this morning and plow into those protesters while going the wrong way on I-5.
Very candidly, we don't know at this point in the investigation what the motive was, what the reasoning was, or how he got through where he got through and got to where he ended up.
Now, even though this investigation continues to see if this was deliberate, what happened here, Khalid is expected to face several serious charges, including vehicular assault and felony hit and run. Back here live, though, absent of that record are any traffic infractions. Yet, as we just mentioned, that could change in the days ahead as he is expected to face several serious driving charges. We are live in downtown Seattle tonight. Ryan Sims, Cairo 7 News.